Li Soha, Xiao Mun Pyong, and Wan Jiayang can all be said to be one of the best warriors of Jianghu. They stood out from an early age and became the object of envy by many. But now, they are the ones looking at Jin Jianwu with envious eyes. It wasn't just because of Jin Jianwu's excellent reputation or his great martial skills. Jin Jianwu had something that drew people's attention towards him. Is it because of the light? Pilwul thought that Jin Jianwu was shining. In fact, it was not that Jin Jianwu emitted light or had a bright halo, but there was something intangible about him that made people unable to take their eyes off him. That's what makes them look only at Jin Jianwu. How scary. Pilwul's eyes turned sharp. Jin Jianwu's martial arts are not scary. If it were only about martial arts, Pilwul was no less behind Jin Jianwu. If he used assassination skills, he was confident that he would be able to kill him. However, Pilwul would not be able to gather people with such a brilliant light. He was born on the ground, then grew up underground. There was a deep darkness in him. His way of thinking and looking at the world, in addition to his behavior, were tainted with darkness. His behavior of hiding himself in the dark and endlessly observing his opponent was something a normal person would not dare to do. On the other hand, Jin Jianwu was gathering people around him with his innate brightness and presence. Pilwul wondered how a person could have such confidence and presence. So he quietly hid his presence and watched Jin Jianwu. I'm late. Then another warrior joined in. He was a man with a very different atmosphere from those who had gathered so far. He was wearing a light attire worn by Confucian scholars, with his hair tied, and a sword at his waist. He was in his mid to late 20s, and his strangely quiet atmosphere was impressive. If Jin Jianwu was as bright as the sun, he was like the moon that cools the night sky. Here you are. Brother Son. Jin Jianwu and Xiao Mun Pyong recognized him and approached him. Geometry Wu, Pyong. The man looked at them and smiled. A man who kept the coldness of the moonlight, so his nickname was the White Moon Sword. The White Moon Sword, Nung Son. 1. He was also a member of the Golden Heavenly Hall. He was the one that Jin Jianwu trusted and depended on the most. With his unique coolness and excellent judgment, he supported Jin Jianwu and led the Golden Heavenly Hall. You're here too. Oh, Brother Son. Wan Jiayang and Li Soha also welcomed Nung Son. It's been a long time since I saw everyone. Older Brother Son came last, so you buy us dinner. Sure. I'll pay for our dinner, so feel free to order as much as you want. Ho ho. Brother Son is the best. Li Soha raised her thumb. Nung Son looked at her with a smile on his face. Have you seen Mr. Yu? We met a while ago. Really? Yes. Fortunately, he was safe, so I was relieved. That's a relief. Li Soha nodded in response to Nung Son's answer. She had a lot to say, so she talked to Nung Son. They all gathered together, including Nung Son. When everyone in the party sat down, the waiter, together with the owner, carried the food that the 4C Pavilion was proud of. Jin Jianwu, who was silently looking at the food, suddenly raised his head and looked at one place. Wan Jiayang looked at Jin Jianwu with a puzzled expression and asked, "What's wrong?" I could feel someone's gaze. Everyone in the guest house is looking at us. It's one of them, isn't it? Is that so? Jin Jianwu nodded his head and looked away. However, the light of suspicion did not disappear from his eyes. No. I definitely felt a different look. He could still feel the chill and goosebumps that seemed to tickle his skin. It was a gaze that could never come from an ordinary person in the guest house. Someone was there. Pilwul quietly walked out of the 4C Pavilion. He came out because he felt that he would be caught by Jin Jianwu's senses if he stayed in the 4C Pavilion any second longer. Jin Jianwu, Golden Heavenly Hall. They probably didn't come to Chengdu for pleasure or because they had nothing to do. In the beginning, their area of activity and Chengdu were so far apart that there was no contact point, so there was a high probability that they had come here with a clear purpose. He now had to figure out their purpose of entering Chengdu. They will find out. Pilwul thought of Su Yang and Co. They were capable people. Perhaps they have already figured out their purpose for coming here. Now, all he had to do was live his life as usual and wait for the information they would bring. After confirming that there was no one around him, Pilwul stroked his face. His face immediately changed. He was a man with ordinary features who was no different from those around him, a low nose with slightly ripped eyes. 7 or 8 out of 10 people passing by had this kind of appearance. Because of that, no one paid any attention to Pilwul. After walking for a while, Pilwul arrived at the slaughterhouse on the outskirts of Chengdu. All cattle and pigs entering Chengdu were slaughtered here. He hadn't even entered the slaughterhouse yet, but he could already smell the awful smell of blood. However, Pilwul did not frown once and walked calmly. "Are you here?" An old butcher greeted him. The deep fan wrinkles and yellowish skin that could not overcome the passage of time were impressive. Pilwul bowed his head slightly to the butcher. Then the old butcher showed his yellow teeth as he grinned. "You're never late. There is no reason to be late. We have quite a lot of work today. Will it be all right?" "It's okay. Today is my last day." "Last? Are you going to quit?" "Yes." "Who?" In response to Pilwul's short answer, the old butcher had a sad expression on his face. But for a moment, he nodded his head. "Okay, if that's your will, then there's nothing I can do about it. I'll count today as your last, so I'll give you your pay today instead." "Yes. Let's head inside." Pilwul lowered his head slightly and entered the slaughterhouse. Inside the slaughterhouse, there were 10 cows locked in cages. Tears seemed to swell up in the cow's big eyes as if it knew today was its last day. Pilwul looked at the cows without saying a word. The cows also looked at Pilwul with gentle eyes. Over the past few months, Pilwul was at the slaughterhouse to kill cattle without missing a single day. The fate of the cows was decided anyway. It was their destiny to be killed by the old butcher and be supplied to the people of Chengdu. The death of cows was inevitable. Pilwul set out to do the work of the old butcher. Then the old butcher laughed at Pilwul. Killing a cow is not as easy as anyone might think. It was not something that could be done by simply inputting strength. There was a proper way of killing cattle. If the cattle suffered from severe pain, then the meat would not be in good condition. To preserve the taste and meat quality, the cattle have to be killed at once without it experiencing much pain. Killing a large cow at once was not an easy task for even an experienced butcher. More so by killing it painlessly. Even an old butcher learned how to kill a cow painlessly only after slaughtering it for decades. This job was something that everyone avoided saying it was lowly, but someone had to do it, and the old man had been doing it for decades. Pilwul didn't know how much they laughed when Pilwul said that he would do such a hard and arduous task. A day, maybe 2 days at best, one would need to have a strong stomach to endure the smell of the deep blood in the slaughterhouse. So it was difficult for a person with a normal mindset to hold on for 1 or 2 minutes. The old butcher thought that Pilwul would not last for more than 2 days. However, contrary to his expectations, Pilwul came to the slaughterhouse every day to kill cows. Pilwul also had a hard time at first. Having mastered assassination methods to some extent, he thought it would be easy to kill a cow. But it didn't take long for him to realize that he had been mistaken. Even though he had the cows killed with a single slash, the cows struggled and felt excruciating pain. As a result, the quality of the beef Pilwul caught has significantly decreased. The old butcher gave Pilwul a good scolding. "It won't work just because you're strong. It's not like cutting in martial arts. You need to know how to comfort the cows." At first, he didn't know what those words meant. What does he mean by consoling the cows? Does that mean that the cow could understand how he feels? Pilwul found his words incomprehensible. However, as the days of him slaughtering the cows increased, he began to understand what the old butcher meant. Pilwul came to the slaughterhouse with the intention to kill the cow. He did not show his intention to kill, but the cows who were facing death felt his intention to kill them. He had to erase his murderous intent that was deeply engraved on his body. He should not think about killing the cow. He had to completely erase his murderous intention and kill it unconsciously, so that the cow would not be even aware of the fact that it was already dying. The carcasses of 1, 2 and more cows piled up. The cattle that Pyoul caught were finally dismantled and supplied to Chengdu. At some point, the customers who once complained about the poor quality of the cows soon began looking for the cows caught by Pyoul. Even the old butcher acknowledged Pyoul's skill. "You're a natural. Your hands are made for slaughter. No one can beat you." Pyoul explored life and death through the cows. There was a big difference between the body of a cow and a human. From the structure to the location of the organs, nothing was the same. However, after a steady investigation, Pyoul found the existence of a previously unknown principle. The acupoints of a living creature point to. The acupoints that separates life from death. Once you stab it, any living creature will die instantly. However, the location of the acupoint is not constant. It moved a little each day. Sometimes it was located near the heart, other times it was located at the ankle. After constant research, Pyoul realized that there is a certain law in the movement of the acupoint. And today was the last day to see if Pyoul's hunch is right. Pyoul led the cow out of the cage. As if the cow knew of its fate, it had a resigned expression. Pyoul caressed the cow's head for a moment. "I'm sorry." Pyoul's finger touched a spot on the cow's shoulder. In an instant, the cow's huge body collapsed helplessly. There was no pain, no crying. The cow just died peacefully, as if it had reached the end of its original lifespan. Pyoul also killed the rest of the cows one after another. All 10 died comfortably without crying even once. It only took him a short time to kill all the cows. Pyoul looked silently at the cows that had died in his hands and went outside. When he came out, the old butcher sprang to his feet in amazement. "Is it over already?" Pyoul silently nodded his head, and the old butcher shook his head. "Oh my God! You!" It would have taken him more than half an hour to kill 10 cows himself. So it was surprising that Pyoul finished all of it in a short time. The old butcher looked inside and was even more surprised. This is because there were no external wounds on the cow. He couldn't figure out how Pyoul took the cow's life. You're a very scary person. I've learned a lot during our time together." "Who?" The old butcher sighed and took the money out of his pocket. After receiving the money, Pyoul said his final farewell to the old butcher and walked out of the slaughterhouse. The old butcher looked at Pyoul's back with frightened eyes. The god of death has come and gone.